What's going on, guys, and welcome back to part 5 of the Tacoma LS Swap build series. In this episode, we're going to be getting the Toyota rear end out of the truck to make way for our Ford 8.8. That way we can take our measurements for our drive shaft. I can get that ordered because that's going to be a completely custom drive shaft. I mean, we have a Nissan transmission and a Ford rear end and a custom length, so we got to put those, basically when you go on the website, they have you input the, what transmission you're using, what rear end you're using, the length, and all kinds of different things. So we want to get that ordered up because I believe that's like a 4-week lead time for that. So let's go ahead and do that. We're also going to go ahead, once we get the drive shaft measured up, we're going to pull the engine transmission back out of the truck so we can start building the engine. Hopefully this week my cylinder heads and my cam will be in from Texas Speed. I ordered those about 3 weeks ago, so they say about 3 weeks on the heads. So hopefully those are here this week and we can get this engine built. So let's get after it. So we got the old rear end out and we're ready to put the new one in. I wanted to show, I got these are 2-inch lowering blocks that I got from Summit Racing. They're just like a universal block, and they're gonna sit on top of the leaf spring, and then the rear end's gonna sit on top of here, so that's gonna bring it up about 2 inches. Now, I'm trying not to spend a ton of money on this rear suspension because I plan on doing a coilover 4-link style suspension at some point, but I want to at least get the truck on the road driving, and then maybe later on I may do that. So I don't want to spend a ton of money on this, because I'm going to eventually ditch this leaf spring suspension. So I just got these lowering blocks, and we're going to kind of see how the truck sits when we're done here. From the factory, the rear of the truck sits about 1 inch higher than the front, and then I'm estimating that with the weight of the engine block, it should probably bring the front end down about another inch. So I'm thinking that a 2-inch block should then kind of level the truck off. So we'll see, obviously, but this should get us at least close to where we want to be. So that's it. All right, so we got our rear end all bolted in. Like I said before, this thing fit really good. All we had to do was, it was off by about 1/4 of an inch, the leaf spring plates on the rear end. So all we did was we oblonged those holes about 1/8 of an inch on each side, and it bolted right up. I also want to note that we just went ahead and reused the old crush washer for our pinion bearing. The reason being is because these are 373 gears, and I'm not sure that these gears are going to work for this application because this transmission is geared pretty short, and the gearing, so the rear end that actually comes in the 350Zs, which is what this transmission came out of, are 350 gears. So I decided I'm just going to run with the gears that are in this rear end and kind of see how it is, see how I like it. And I feel like I'm probably going to end up swapping these gears out for some taller gears. So we'll see, but I didn't want to, you know, put a new crush washer in it and do the whole 9 yards. So we just set the pinion preload, you know, got it real close to where we want it, and we're just gonna run it how it is. So what I wanna do right now, before we go ahead and pull the engine transmission back out and start building our block, what I wanna do is I wanna get this gas tank out of here. I wanna pull the pump module out, and I actually have a Walbro pump that I bought, and I want to try and adapt it to the factory fuel pump module. And then what I'm probably going to do, the reason why I want to do this is I want to get some bulkhead fittings that will work so that I can use this pump module. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, so we got the fuel pump mounted, and this thing actually fits almost perfectly, like it was made for this truck. But really, this is just a universal Walbro pump. This is a 255 LPH pump, which the guys that I bought it from, which was actually South Bay Fuel Injectors, is the same place that I bought my injectors from. They said that this pump should be sufficient for, you know, what our plans are. You know, I'm thinking I'll probably be making, you know, upwards of around 500 horsepower, and this pump should, you know, deliver fuel for 500 horsepower, no problem. But so I thought that the end of this was going to be like a 3/8 line, which is like 6 AN, and my thinking was that I was going to have to eliminate this line here and adapt a 3/8 fitting to run all the way up to the front. But the fact that this has a 5/16 end tells me that 5/16 line should be perfectly fine for what we're going to be making. So we're just going to go ahead and, you know, put a rubber hose in between these two lines, and we're going to adapt a fuel line to this existing 5/16 line and run that all the way up to our regulator. What we did here is, this is the end that came with the pump, and this is the end that plugs into our factory connector, and we just soldered them together, and we're going to kind of hose clamp this pump onto here, plug this all in, and we should be ready to go. All right, so now that we got the pump in the tank, we can't really do anything else with that right now. Before, I want to get the frame painted and stuff like that before we put the tank in. So now, let's go ahead and get the engine transmission back out of the truck so we can get this engine ready to be built. All right, so first thing I want to do is we want to get the cam bearings installed. This block needs washed again because it's got a lot of dust and stuff like that from us cutting and welding and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to knock these old cam bearings out, and then we're going to wash the block off, dry it, get it back on the table, and install our new cam bearings. All right, so we're trying to pull all these plugs out, and go figure, this is like a really big Allen socket that I have in my toolbox at work, but I don't have it here. And I work about 30 minutes from home, and I really don't feel like going to work to get it. So what I did was I made another special tool. So this nut will fit down inside of there. I welded it to another nut. So my plan is, put that in like that, put a socket around that, and break it loose. Let's see if it works. She goes. Man, that sucker is tight. Yeah. I'll put the link in the description to this tool where you can purchase it. I'll put it in my store. Built by Sonic's store. Memorabilia. Yeah. Exactly. Every purchase of this tool gets a free t-shirt. Alright, so we got the block cleaned off for the final time. We took it out. I sprayed some degreaser all over it. I pressure washed it down. So what we're going to do now is get our cam bearings installed. Now how these come, each of these bearings has a part number on it. And it tells you, where each of these bearings, because they're different sizes. So there are 3 different part numbers of bearings inside this box. A total of 5 bearings, 3 different part numbers. And it tells you where each part number goes corresponding to, so SH 1995A goes in position 1 and 5. And then SH 2124 is going to go in position 2 and 4. And then SH 2125, which there's only one of, is going to go in position 3, which is in the center. Let's go ahead and do that now. Going? Yeah. bad. Where you at?
Keep going. Keep going. Right now you're like on the edge.
Okay.
Hold on. Pull it out.
Probably a little bit more.
A little bit.
That's what it looks like.
Okay. Probably like another smack. Maybe one more, and then you'll be totally lined up with that.
A little taparooski. That's a large one.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's about where it was on the other one, because you had about the same amount from this side to that side.
That should be good. Probably is pretty centered. Alright, so we got our cam bearings installed, and this is a tool that we use. I actually got this tool from Summit Racing, and this is a really nice tool. It's the first time I'm using it, and I'll go ahead and put the link for this tool in the description below. I don't remember how much I paid for it. I think it was like around $100 or something, but yeah, it's a really, really nice tool, very well built. Super easy to install cam bearings with this tool. Next thing we want to do is we're going to get this thing back on the engine stand, and I want to go ahead and hone out these cylinders. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so we got our ball hone ready. I got some oil here. I'm just going to kind of coat the ball hone, and then we're going to run it through the cylinder. And what you're kind of looking for is about a 45-degree crosshatch in respect to the deck. So, you know, straight up and down would be 90. You want 45 from the deck surface. Alright, so we got two of these cylinders honed. It's kind of tough to tell. Basically you want to make sure that you're getting your cross hatching about 45 degrees. It's kind of hard to tell because there's just so many cross hatches, but those look pretty good to me. Here you can kind of see the difference there, and then these two we haven't done yet. Alright, so now what I want to do is go ahead and set my crank down dry, and we're going to plastic gauge it to check our bearing clearances. I already went ahead and set our main bearings down inside the block. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the crank down, put the caps on and go ahead and torque it down and see what our bearing clearances are. An absolute essential when you're building an engine. So all we did was cut a little piece, and then you stick it on top of the crank journal. And when you put the cap on and you torque it down, it'll smash that plastic gauge out. And then you use a gauge, which you're gonna see here in a little bit. Depending on how wide that strip becomes, how much it smashes, is how tight your bearing clearance is. All right, so once we got this thing all torqued down, we went ahead and loosened all the bolts up. We just started with this first cap, so we took the cap off, and as you can see, the plastic gauge has then smashed, and then you take your gauge, see if that focuses, and you put the gauge up against it, and based on how thick it is, that's how you know how much your bearing clearance is. So in this case, you put this up against our plastic gauge, and it's about 0.38, probably about 0.40. 0.40 millimeters, which, what's our spec?
02 to 065.
02 to 065, so we're like right in the middle. So we're good there. So we're just gonna go ahead and do the same thing for all 5 caps. And as long as our bearing clearance is within spec, we're good to go ahead and do our final assembly on these main bearings. Okay, so we got the final torque down on all of our main bolts. Crank spins real nice. It's ready to go. So what we're gonna go ahead and do now is get these pistons re-ringed and get those ready to install in the block. I also wanted to mention that all of these caps have side bolts that also get torqued down to, I believe, 17 foot-pounds. Those all get a dab of RTV around them to prevent oil from leaking out. Alright guys, so as much as I wanted to get the rotating assembly completely put back together in this video, I'm gonna have to break it up into 2 parts because I still have to set all my ring gaps. I have to check all my rod bearing clearances, so I have to do all that before I can even install my pistons, and plus my heads aren't even here yet. So hopefully by midweek I should have my heads. Texas Speed has been like super slow in shipping my parts. I'm actually kind of unhappy with them right now. They were supposed to ship out 3 weeks after I ordered them, and it's been like a month and a half, and they just now shipped them, and they never even reached out to me to say, hey, there's been a delay in your shipment, and so whatever. So those should be here. They just shipped out, so those should be here in a couple days. So by the next episode, we're definitely going to be getting this engine almost completely put back together, and hopefully we're actually not too far off of getting this thing running. Once we get this engine put back together, really all I have to do is all my wiring and start running fuel lines and stuff like that, and this thing's ready to light up for the first time. So pretty excited about that. So with that being said, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, drop a comment down below, let me know what you think. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I've been trying to post regular kind of updates and sneak peeks, so don't forget to do that. But until next time, peace!